The fluorescent lights blurred, monitors beeped, my ribs screamed. When I called my mother begging for help with surgery that would save my life, her voice was ice. The money is for Vanessa's nose job. You're like a comet showing up only to ruin plans. Click. She chose my sister's third cosmetic surgery over my survival. Tears pooled in my ears as I lay dying alone. Then I woke to a voice I hadn't heard in 23 years. Daughter, we will make them pay. Have you ever been abandoned by those who should love you? The stories on this channel are created solely for entertainment, educational, and storytelling purposes. While some stories are inspired by real situations submitted by viewers via email, most details have been fictionalized, combined, or altered. My name is Sabrina Newton. I'm 35 years old, a senior financial analyst living in a modest one-bedroom apartment in Columbus, Ohio. On paper, I'm successful, stable career, steady income, independent. But success means nothing when the people who should love you treat you like you don't exist. Let me take you back to where this all began. I grew up in a middle-class suburb where my younger sister Vanessa was the sun, and I was just background noise. Every achievement of hers was celebrated. Every breath I took seemed to irritate my mother. The only person who ever made me feel like I mattered was my grandmother Margaret, my mother's own mother. She was a retired nurse, sharp-minded and warm-hearted, and she lived 2 hours away. Every visit with her felt like coming up for air. But when I was 12, everything shattered. After a family dinner, Grandma Margaret confronted my mother about the obvious favoritism. The fight that erupted shook the walls. The next morning, my mother's verdict was final. You are never to see or speak to your grandmother again. She's toxic. She's trying to steal you to prove I'm a bad mother. The last time I saw Grandma Margaret, she stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. She whispered something I didn't understand then. One day, you will know everything they've hidden from you. I'll be waiting. Then she was gone, and I spent the next 23 years wondering what she meant. Growing up, I learned that my independence was my greatest crime. Whenever I solved a problem on my own or made a decision without asking permission, my mother's lip would curl. You're exactly like your grandmother, she'd say, her voice dripping with contempt. Stubborn, cold, think you're better than everyone. I learned to shrink myself to need less to become invisible. But nothing I did was ever enough. The more I disappeared, the more she seemed to resent that I existed at all. Vanessa was different. She craved attention, validation, reassurance. And my mother thrived on being needed. Their relationship was symbiotic. Mine with my mother was simply absent. When I turned 25, my father's business collapsed. The family nearly lost the house. Foreclosure notices piled up. Then a miracle happened. An anonymous donor paid off half the mortgage. My mother wept and thanked God. She never knew it was me. Over the next 10 years, I secretly funneled nearly every dollar I saved back into my family. I paid Vanessa's rent through a fake housing assistance program. I covered my mother's medical bills. I made problems disappear before anyone knew they existed. $350,000, almost everything I had. I never expected gratitude. I just wanted them to be okay, even if they never loved me. 6 months before everything fell apart, I found out about the tumor. Doctors said it needed monitoring. I made the mistake of mentioning it to my mother during a rare phone call. Her response was immediate dismissal. You always exaggerate. We're busy planning Vanessa's surgery. Don't make everything about you. I never brought it up again. But something strange happened during my last visit home. My father looked at me differently, his eyes filled with guilt and shame, as if he wanted to confess something. He opened his mouth, then looked away. I just hope you're taking care of yourself, he muttered. It was the most personal thing he'd said to me in years. Looking back now, I understand what I couldn't see as a child. My mother didn't hate me for my flaws. She hated me for my strengths, because they reminded her of the mother she could never forgive. I was punished for being capable, for existing. 1 week after that phone call, I was driving home from a business trip when a car ran a red light and slammed into my door. I woke up in a hospital bed. The tumor had turned critical. I needed emergency surgery within 48 hours, or I would die. And for the first time in my adult life, I picked up the phone to ask my family for help. Not for money, but just to know, did they care at all? My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. The hospital room was cold and sterile, and the monitors beside my bed beeped in a rhythm that reminded me how fragile my heartbeat had become. I was not calling for money. I had already spoken to a financial counselor about payment plans. What I needed was simpler and more terrifying. I needed to know if my family would come, if they cared whether I lived or died. I dialed my mother's number and waited. She picked up on the fourth ring. "Mom," I said, and my voice cracked immediately. "I was in a car accident. I'm in the hospital. The doctors found that my tumor has gotten worse. I need emergency surgery or I might—" I could not finish the sentence. The word die stuck in my throat like broken glass. There was silence on the other end. Then my mother spoke, and her first word was not, "Are you okay?" or "We're coming." Her first word was, "How much?" I blinked. "What? How much do you need, Sabrina? Because I want you to know the money is already allocated for Vanessa's surgery. We've been planning this for months. She's getting married to Marcus. You know how important this is for her future." I felt like I had been punched in the chest. "Mom, I'm not asking for money. I just wanted you to know I might be dying testes." "You always do this, Kate," she said, and I could hear the irritation rising in her voice. "You always find a way to make everything about you at the worst possible moments." And then she said the words that would echo in my mind for the rest of my life. "You're like a comet, Sabrina. You only show up to cause problems and then disappear. Handle this like you always handle everything. You're strong, you'll figure it out. Handle this like you always handle everything. You'll figure it out." The words hit me differently this time, because suddenly I understood what she was really saying. She knew. She knew I had been handling things for the family for years. She was counting on it. She was using my own strength as a weapon against me, as proof that I did not need her as justification for abandoning me. "Mom," I whispered, "are you saying you won't come? I might be dying. Vanessa's surgery is in 3 days. We can't just drop everything. Call us when you're out of surgery and let us know how it went." Then she hung up, just like that. I sat there holding the phone, staring at the screen, like it might offer some explanation. My mother had just chosen my sister's third cosmetic surgery over my life. Not because she could not afford to help, not because she did not understand the situation, but because I was not worth the inconvenience. I tried my father next. Maybe he would be different. Maybe after all these years of silence, he would finally stand up for me. "Dad," I said when he answered, "please, I need you. I know Mom is difficult, but I just need someone to be here with me." There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing on the other end. Then he said, "Sweetheart, I'll talk to your mother. Let me see what I can do." Hope flickered in my chest. Maybe he would fight for me this one time. Maybe blood would finally mean something. I waited. 2 hours passed. Then 5. Nurses came and went. My phone stayed silent. Finally, a text arrived. "Your mother says we need to be here for Vanessa right now. Her surgery is the priority." "I'm sorry, sweetheart, but you're stronger than anyone I know. You've always taken care of things. You'll get through this too." I read it 3 times, trying to find some hidden meaning, some secret message of love buried in the words. Then a second text came through, and my blood turned to ice. "I know you'll find a way. You always do. That's who you are. I know you'll find a way. You always do." He knew. They both knew. Somewhere along the line, my father had figured out that I was the one who had been saving the family. And instead of feeling grateful, instead of finally seeing me, they were using that knowledge to justify leaving me to die alone. My strength was not something they admired. It was something they exploited. My phone rang again. Vanessa's name flashed on the screen. For one desperate moment, I thought maybe my little sister would be different. Maybe she would surprise me. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Her voice was sharp and furious. "Marcus's mother just called asking about family drama. Mom is crying. Dad looks like he's going to have a heart attack. You're ruining everything." "Vanessa," I said quietly, "I'm in the hospital. I might need life-saving surgery. And you couldn't wait until after my wedding. God, Sabrina, you always do this. You always find a way to steal attention. This is my moment, my surgery, my wedding. Why can't you just handle your own problems without dragging us into it?" Then something strange happened. Her voice wavered. Just for a second, I heard something that sounded like a sob catch in her throat. But before I could respond, she hardened again. "Just don't call anymore. We'll check in after your surgery, if you even need one. You probably don't." She hung up. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling everything I had ever believed about my family crumble into dust. They did not love me. They had never loved me. I was just useful. And now that I needed them, I was nothing but a burden. That night, a nurse named Patricia came in to check my vitals. She paused at the door with an expression I could not read. "Honey," she said softly, "I need to tell you something. There's a woman who's been here since the day you were admitted. She doesn't come into your room. She just sits in the hallway waiting area. She's been here every day morning to night. She prays. Sometimes she cries. When we told her your surgery was scheduled, she asked about the cost. We said we couldn't share that information. But the next morning, the hospital financial office received an anonymous wire transfer covering your entire out-of-pocket balance." My heart stopped. "Who is she?" "Elderly woman. Maybe early 80s, silver hair, very dignified even when she's crying." She said. Patricia hesitated. She said she's been waiting 23 years for the right moment, and she thinks this might be it. Before I could process what I was hearing, the orderlies arrived. It was time for surgery. As they wheeled me down the hallway toward the operating room, my mind raced. An elderly woman, 23 years, the right moment. Could it be? Was it possible that after all this time my grandmother Margaret had found me? The anesthesia began to take hold. My thoughts grew foggy and slow. The last thing I remember thinking was this: if I don't wake up, will anyone mourn me? And then everything went dark. In that moment, as the anesthesia pulled me under, I finally understood something I had been avoiding my whole life. I had spent 10 years giving everything to people who would never see me as anything more than useful. I paid their mortgage. I funded my sister's lifestyle. I covered my mother's medical bills. And when I needed them to save my life, they chose a nose job. Not because they couldn't afford to help, but because I was not worth the inconvenience. The surgery lasted 6 hours. When I finally opened my eyes, the room was dim and quiet. But I was not alone. Someone was holding my hand. Someone was crying softly beside my bed. And then I heard a voice I had not heard in 23 years. "My sweet girl." "Girl," she said, "you came back to me. And now I'm going to tell you everything they've been hiding from you." I blinked, trying to focus through the haze of medication and exhaustion. The hospital room was dim. My body ached in places I did not know could hurt. But the hand holding mine was warm and steady, and the voice that had spoken those words was unmistakable even after all these years. "Grandma." My voice came out hoarse, barely a whisper. Margaret Newton sat beside my bed, 83 years old, her silver hair pulled back elegantly. Her eyes were red from crying, but her posture was straight and dignified. She leaned closer and squeezed my hand. "Yes, my darling, it's me. I paid for your surgery. I've been waiting in that hallway for 4 days praying you would wake up." She paused. "I've been waiting 23 years for the right moment to come back into your life. I'm only sorry it took you almost dying for that moment to arrive." I could not process what I was hearing. 23 years she had been out there somewhere while I believed she had abandoned me. "How did you know I was here?" Margaret took a breath. "I've had someone watching over you since you turned 18. A former colleague of mine, a retired social worker. When you were admitted, she called me within the hour. I drove through the night to get here. You've been watching me for 17 years. I never stopped loving you, Sabrina. I just wasn't allowed to show it." Her eyes filled with fresh tears. "But now you're awake, and now you deserve to know everything." She settled into her chair, still holding my hand. "Your mother and I have had a difficult relationship since she was a teenager. I was a nurse, independent and career-focused. I pushed her to be strong, to be self-sufficient. But she needed constant validation, constant reassurance that she was special." Margaret paused. "When she married your father, I hoped she would grow. But he's weak. He tells her what she wants to hear instead of what she needs to hear. And then you were born." A sad smile crossed her face. "Sabrina, from the moment you could crawl, you were independent. You didn't cry for attention. You figured things out on your own. You were so much like me. And Mom hated that," I said quietly. "Your mother looked at you and saw me. She saw the strength she never had, the independence she could never achieve. And she couldn't stand it." Margaret shook her head. "Vanessa was different. Vanessa needed her constantly. Vanessa made her feel important. So your mother poured everything into Vanessa and punished you for the crime of being capable." Everything I had wondered about my childhood suddenly made terrible sense. I was not defective. I was simply a mirror that reflected everything my mother hated about herself. When you were 12, I came to visit, Margaret continued. I watched your mother ignore you at dinner while praising every word Vanessa said. I watched your father pretend not to notice. After you went to bed, I confronted your mother. I told her what she was doing to you was emotional abuse. I told her if she didn't stop, I was going to report it. What happened? She exploded. She accused me of trying to steal you, of wanting to prove she was a bad mother. She told you I was toxic and manipulative. She poisoned your mind against me. Margaret squeezed my hand. I tried calling, but she blocked my number. I tried writing letters, but she intercepted every one. I sent money for your birthdays, $500 every year for 23 years. She kept it all. My stomach dropped. She kept the money, $11,500. You never saw a penny. I only found out years later when my contact told me you had never received anything from me. I felt like the floor was falling away beneath me. Everything I thought I knew about my grandmother had been a lie carefully constructed by my mother. But Margaret was not finished. There's more, she said, her voice heavy, and this part is going to hurt. Tell me. 5 years ago, your father discovered that you've been secretly supporting the family. He was organizing old paperwork and found a medical bill from your mother's surgery. Your name was on the credit card receipt. You forgot to use your anonymous account. My blood ran cold. He knew. He investigated further. Your father is not stupid, just weak. He traced the patterns. Every financial crisis, a miracle appeared. He figured out everything. The mortgage, the rent money for Vanessa, all of it. And he never said anything. Worse. Margaret's eyes were fierce. He told your mother. The room seemed to spin. She knows. She's known for 5 years. They both have. They chose together to keep pretending they didn't know. Because admitting the truth meant admitting they were wrong about you for 30 years. They would have to feel grateful, and your mother couldn't stomach that. I remembered my mother's words. Handle this like you always handle everything. You're strong. You'll figure it out. I remembered my father's text. I know you'll find a way. You always do. They weren't abandoning me. They were counting on me, using me, exploiting the very strength they resented. They knew I was keeping them afloat, I whispered. And they still let me think I might die alone. That's who they are, sweetheart. It's time you stop protecting people who have been deliberately using you. I was silent for a long time. Margaret waited patiently. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm. I had no tears left. Grandma, I'm not going to destroy them. That's not who I am, but I'm done being invisible. I'm done being used. I asked her for a pen and paper. I'm going to write them one letter, not to beg, not to explain, just to tell them the truth and tell them it's over. Over the next 2 hours, with Margaret's help, I wrote the most important letter of my life. I told them I was the anonymous source they had thanked God for. I told them I had paid half the mortgage when they almost lost the house. I told them I had been paying Vanessa's rent for 8 years through the housing program she thought she qualified for. I told them I had paid for our mother's medical bills. I told them I knew they had known for 5 years. I knew Dad found the receipt. I knew he told Mom. And I knew they chose to keep taking while pretending I was worthless. I told them when I was lying in a hospital bed, possibly dying, they told me to handle it like I always did. They knew exactly what that meant. I told them it ended today. All financial support would stop immediately. The housing assistance program would notify Vanessa that funding had been discontinued. All automatic payments were canceled. I told them I was not doing this for revenge. I finally understood I was never the problem. I was never a comet bringing destruction. I was the one holding everything together while being told I was worthless. I told them if any of them wanted a relationship with me, the door was not locked forever. But they would come as equals with honesty and accountability, or not at all. I signed my name and sealed the envelope. Will you mail this for me, Grandma? Margaret took the letter. With pleasure. Do you know what hurts more than being unloved? Being loved in secret while being abused in public. My father knew I was keeping his family afloat, and he let my mother call me worthless anyway. He chose his comfort over my dignity. Some people will watch you drown and still complain that you're splashing them. 3 days later, while I recovered in the hospital with my grandmother by my side, the Newton family gathered to celebrate Vanessa's successful cosmetic surgery. The champagne flowed. Vanessa admired her new nose and every reflective surface. Mother was beaming. Father forced a smile. Then the mail arrived. My mother opened the envelope expecting a card from some distant relative. She read the first line and her face went white. By the time she reached the end, her hands were shaking so violently the paper rattled. "Richard," she whispered to my father. "She knows. She knows everything." The daughter they dismissed as worthless had just revealed she was the foundation their entire comfortable life was built on, and she had just pulled that foundation out from under them. The dominoes began falling 2 weeks after my letter arrived. Vanessa received a formal notice that her housing assistance funding had been discontinued. When she called the number on the letterhead, she discovered there had never been a program at all. The payments came from a private individual, 8 years, $192,000, from the sister she had mocked her entire life. But that was only the beginning. Marcus's wealthy family had been conducting a background investigation. What they found was damning. My mother had claimed the family owned vacation property in Florida. They never did. My father had represented himself as CEO of Newton Consulting. The company went bankrupt 12 years ago. Vanessa claimed to be a freelance fashion consultant. She had no clients and no income. Her entire lifestyle had been funded by an anonymous source that had now dried up. Marcus ended the engagement. He told Vanessa he did not care that her family was not wealthy. He cared that she had lied. His family built their reputation on integrity. The society wedding was canceled. The perfect life Vanessa had been engineering for years was over. She tried calling her society friends. No one answered. They were never her friends. They just wanted proximity to Marcus's wealth. Vanessa called my number over and over. I saw her name flash on my screen. I did not answer. Not yet. She needed to sit in that emptiness. It was the only way she would ever change. 3 months after mailing the letter, I stood on a small stage in a community center receiving a Community Courage Award from a local women's organization. The award recognized individuals who had overcome family trauma and used their experiences to help others. I had started volunteering at a support group for women estranged from their families. My story had resonated with dozens of women who saw themselves in me. My grandmother Margaret sat in the front row, tears streaming down her face. A reporter asked me how I felt. "I feel free," I said. "For the first time in 35 years, I feel like I matter. Not because someone finally told me I do, but because I finally believe it myself." That night, lying in bed in my small apartment near Margaret's house, I felt peace for the first time. I thought the hard part was over. I was wrong. 1 week after the award ceremony, my phone rang at 3 in the morning. It was the hospital. Margaret had suffered a stroke. I drove through the darkness with my hands shaking. Not her, not now, not when I finally had her back. The doctors explained it was a mild stroke, but at 83, any stroke is serious. Margaret would survive, but she needed constant care for the next few months. I sat beside her bed watching her sleep. The steady beep of the heart monitor filled the silence, and for the first time since my victory, I felt raw, honest fear. If I lost her, I would be truly alone. I had built my whole new life around her. Was I actually strong? Or had I just replaced one crutch with another? 3 days later, Margaret woke up properly. She was weak, but her mind was sharp. She looked at my face at the dark circles and barely concealed panic and understood immediately. "Sabrina," she said, "we need to talk." I tried to smile. "You need to rest, Grandma. You know what's stressing me? Watching you fall apart because you're terrified of losing me." My composure cracked. "I just got you back. I can't lose you. Listen to me." She took my hand. "I love you more than anything, but you cannot build your life on me. I'm 83 years old. I won't be here forever. And I need to know that when I go, you'll be okay." "How can I be okay? You're the only person who truly loves me." "No, that's the lie you're still telling yourself. Your worth was never about who loves you. It's about who you are, how you treat others, what you build. I didn't save you, Sabrina. I just showed you what was already there." I was crying now. "Without me, you are still a woman who survived 35 years of emotional abuse and came out kind," Margaret continued. "You are still Sabrina Newton. And Sabrina Newton doesn't need anyone's validation to be worthy. Not even mine. You're learning what unconditional love looks like so you can give it to yourself. That's the lesson. And once you learn it, no one can ever take it from you." That night, I did something I never thought I would. I called Vanessa, not to forgive, not to reconcile, but to speak from strength instead of need. Vanessa answered on the first ring, her voice hollow. Sabrina, I heard you've been trying to reach me. I'm not calling because I need anything from you. I know you're going through hell. I know Marcus left. I know you lost everything. And I want you to know I don't hate you. Vanessa was crying. I'm so sorry. I didn't know the money was from you. I didn't know you were carrying us all those years. I know you didn't know about the money, but you did know how you were treating me. You knew you were cruel. That wasn't about money. I know. I've been going to therapy. I was so scared of being invisible like you that I did anything to stay in Mom's good graces, even if it meant destroying you. I understand that now, and I forgive you for not knowing about the money. The rest will take time. I'll wait, however long it takes. I'm not ready to have a relationship with you. I might never be. But I'm not closing the door completely. If you really change not because you need something from me, but because you want to be better, then maybe someday we can talk again. But Vanessa, you should know something. Even when you were terrible to me, I kept hoping that if I held everything together long enough, you'd have a chance to figure out who you really are. Now you need to fight for yourself, because I'm done carrying anyone else. I hung up and realized I had not called for Vanessa's sake. I called because I needed to close that chapter on my own terms from a place of power, not pain. Over the following weeks, I met with my parents separately. My mother at a coffee shop. She tried manipulation first, telling me blood is blood. I told her I was not there to argue. I told her she knew for 5 years that I was keeping the family afloat, and she let me believe I was worthless anyway. She took my money and called me a comet. She let me think I might die alone while she planned Vanessa's cosmetic surgery. I told her I see her clearly now. I see that she hated me because I reminded her of everything she could not be. The daughter she called a comet is done orbiting her world. I have my own sky now. I walked out without looking back. My father met me at a park already crying. He admitted he knew everything and was too weak to act. I told him I forgive him, but love without courage is just a nice feeling. It does not protect anyone. If he wants to be part of my future, he has to earn it by doing the work, whether I am watching or not. People ask me if I have forgiven them. I tell them I have stopped carrying the weight of their cruelty. But forgiveness does not mean amnesia. I remember everything not to punish them, but to protect myself. I will not build a wall around my heart, but I will build a door, and I get to choose who walks through it. 1 month later, Margaret was recovering well. I received an invitation to her 84th birthday celebration. Small gathering, close friends, family, only the family we chose. My name was at the top of the guest list. My parents' names were nowhere to be found, but written at the bottom in Margaret's handwriting was Vanessa Newton, pending if she continues her progress. For the first time, I understood. Family is not about blood. It is about choice. It is about who shows up, and I finally knew where I belonged. 9 months after my surgery, I stood before a room of 30 women at a community center. They ranged in age from 30 to 75. Some were new to the support group for adults estranged from their families. Others had been coming for months. They had asked me to share my story. I was the invisible daughter, I began. For 35 years, I believed something was fundamentally broken inside me. Why else would my own mother hate me? Why else would my family treat me like I didn't exist? The room was silent. Some women were already nodding. I tried everything to earn their love. I made myself smaller. I made myself more useful. I gave them almost $350,000 over 10 years anonymously because I knew they would never accept it if they knew it came from me. I thought if I just loved them hard enough, they would finally see me. A woman in her 60s wiped her eyes. And then I almost died. When I called my mother from a hospital bed begging not for money, but just for her to care, she told me I was like a comet. She said I only show up to cause problems. And I finally understood. Some people will never see you. Not because you're not worth seeing, but because seeing you would mean admitting they were wrong. Some people would rather let you die than admit they were wrong. I looked around the room at women who carried the same wounds I had carried. So let me tell you what took me 35 years to learn. You don't owe your loyalty to people who only remember you when they need something. You don't owe your love to people who treat it like an inconvenience. You don't owe forgiveness to people who haven't even asked for it. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing yourself. Walking away from people who hurt you isn't abandonment. It's survival. A woman around 50 asked how I forgave them. I haven't forgiven everything. Forgiveness for me isn't saying what they did was okay. It's saying I won't let what they did poison the rest of my life. But forgiveness and boundaries are two different things. I can forgive my father for being weak and refuse to let his weakness hurt me again. Forgiveness is putting down the weight. Boundaries are making sure you never have to carry it again. Another woman asked if I regretted giving them all that money. Sometimes, but I didn't give them money to buy their love. I gave them money because I didn't want them to suffer. What I regret is losing myself in the giving. The lesson isn't don't be generous. The lesson is give to people who value it and never give so much that you lose yourself. The Newton family exists now, in quiet ruin. My mother works at a department store, the same store where she used to shop as a valued customer. Now she folds clothes and forces smiles at women who once envied her life. She has not reached out to me since our meeting. Pride, even in ruins, is all she has left. My father lives alone in a small apartment. He has been in therapy for 6 months. He writes me 1 letter per month, never asking for anything, just sharing small updates. Went to a support group today, thinking about all the ways I let you down. I read every letter. I haven't responded yet, but I have noticed he never makes excuses. He is taking responsibility slowly and painfully. Vanessa has transformed, but not overnight. She sold her apartment and designer bags. She moved into a modest studio. She is working as an administrative assistant, her first real job in 32 years. She texts me occasionally, never asking for money, just small updates. Got a raise today. I met someone, a regular person. He knows everything about my past, and he still likes me. I have started responding occasionally, brief and warm, but guarded. I am not ready for a relationship with Vanessa. Maybe I never will be. But Vanessa seems almost relieved to have lost everything, like she has been freed from a prison she didn't know she was in. One text from her stays with me. I spent 32 years trying to be perfect. I finally understand that perfect was killing me. Thank you for being strong enough to end it. Margaret's 84th birthday party was held in her small backyard. White string lights, home-cooked food, 12 guests, friends from over the years, women from my support group, a few neighbors, no Newtons. But the space didn't feel empty. It felt full. After the guests left, Margaret gave me a wooden box. Inside were hundreds of letters she had written to me over 23 years, every birthday, every Christmas, letters she could never send. But at the bottom was one letter that wasn't from Margaret. I recognized my father's handwriting immediately. Margaret explained that he had written it to her 15 years ago but never sent it. Years later, he found it and finally mailed it with a note saying he should have sent it 15 years ago. I opened the yellowed paper. Dear Margaret, I know you probably hate me. I deserve it. I've watched my wife destroy our daughter for 20 years, and I've said nothing. I told myself I was keeping the peace. The truth is, I was just too scared to fight. I love Sabrina. I've always loved her. But I don't know how to show it without making everything worse. I know this letter doesn't fix anything. I know I'm a coward for writing it instead of actually standing up for my child. But I needed someone to know the truth. I see Sabrina. I see how special she is. I see how much she's suffering. And I'm too weak to stop it. Please don't give up on her. I'm sorry I can't be that person. I read the letter 3 times. My father loved me. He always loved me. But love without action is just intention. It's a nice feeling that never becomes anything real. Margaret took my hand. Your father wasn't incapable of love. He was incapable of courage. That's a different kind of tragedy. I folded the letter carefully. I would keep it as a reminder of what happens when you let fear make your choices. Later that evening, I stood on Margaret's back porch watching the stars emerge. I thought about my mother's words. You're like a comet. For 35 years, I believed that was an insult. Now I see it differently. Comets don't destroy, they illuminate. They streak across the darkness and remind people that there's light in the universe if you're brave enough to look up. My mother wasn't brave enough. But I don't need her eyes anymore. I have my grandmother's eyes. I have my own eyes. And I finally see myself clearly. If you're hearing my story, maybe you see yourself in me. Maybe you're the invisible child. Maybe you're the one who gives and never gets anything back. Let me tell you what it took me 35 years to learn. You are already enough. You were always enough. The people who made you feel worthless, that was never about you. It was about their limitations, their fears, their inability to love something they couldn't control. You are not responsible for their blindness. Some people will never see your light no matter how brightly you shine. That's not your failure, it's their loss. My mother called me a comet. She meant it as an insult. But comets don't destroy, comets illuminate, and I refuse to apologize for being bright. Neither should you. Some families are bound by blood. Some families are bound by choice. I learned that the people who share your DNA aren't always the people who deserve your love. I didn't burn down the family that hurt me. I just stopped carrying them. I stopped making myself small so they could feel big. And I built something new, something mine, something beautiful. The comet doesn't orbit anymore. She has her own sky now. Thank you for staying with me through Sabrina's story. If her journey touched your heart, I hope you will carry these lessons with you. First, your worth is not determined by how others treat you. Some people will never see your value, and that is their loss, not your failure. Second, giving without boundaries is not love. It is self-destruction. You can be generous without losing yourself. Third, forgiveness does not mean allowing people back into your life. You can release the anger while still protecting your peace. Fourth, walking away from toxic family members is not betrayal. It is survival. Blood does not give anyone the right to hurt you. And finally, it is never too late to build the life you deserve. Sabrina was 35 when she finally chose herself. Your moment can come at any age. If you found meaning in this story, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next video. We share stories of strength, healing, and justice every week. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have you ever given everything to people who gave nothing back? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story matters, and you are not alone.
Đây không? Thì giờ